She gave up everything, her dreams, her savings, even her chance at medical school, just to put the man she loved through university, believing he'd rise above poverty. Now, 7 years later, he's living a lavish life as an engineer in Lagos. But when her mother falls critically ill and she turns to him for help, he sends her crumbs. And then proposes to her closest friend. What he doesn't know is, she's been hiding a truth so powerful it could flip his perfect world upside down. This emotional African love story will shatter your heart and remind you that karma never forgets. Trust me, the ending will leave you breathless. Stick around. You won't believe what happens when his lies finally catch up with him. Hi, family. Before we jump in, drop your country in the comments and hit that subscribe button for more powerful stories like this. The smell of boiling beans filled the small one-room apartment as Amara stood barefoot in the corner, staring at her medical school admission letter. Her eyes burned, not from the smoke, but from the tears she refused to let fall. She had worked so hard, top of her class, accepted into one of the best medical schools in the country, but none of that mattered now. She folded the letter, pressed it to her chest, and placed it gently inside a worn-out Bible she hadn't opened in years. Across the room, Chuka sat hunched over a stack of engineering textbooks. He looked up at her and smiled, his eyes hopeful. "Babe, I swear, once I finish school, we'll have everything. Big house, big car. You'll go back to school too. I promise." Amara forced a smile. She wanted to believe him. She needed to believe him. But deep down, a small part of her already knew she was giving up more than just a dream. She was giving up a part of herself. That evening, she walked to the bus park and sold her last piece of jewelry, her grandmother's gold chain. It wasn't much, but it would pay Chuka's hostel fee for the semester. Weeks turned into months. Amara juggled 3 jobs, selling food at the roadside in the morning, cleaning homes in the afternoon, and helping an old seamstress sew clothes late at night. Every kobo went into Chuka's education. Every sweat, every blister, every hunger, pang was for him. She believed in him with all her heart. She prayed that one day he would look back and understand what she gave up for him. But Chuka never looked back. Each time she visited him at school, he seemed further away, more polished, more proud. He started wearing expensive perfumes and hiding his phone screen when she was near. When she asked why he hadn't come home for mid-semester break, he told her he was too busy networking with the right people. Still, Amara kept giving. Her shoes were worn through. Her mother, already sick, kept asking, "My daughter, why must you suffer like this?" Amara always replied the same way, "Because I love him, and I believe in his future." But she didn't. No, she was building a future that might never include her. The morning sun lit up Amara's room, revealing a woman no longer wide-eyed and hopeful, but quiet and tired. Her mother now lay on a small mattress by the window, coughing with every breath. The illness had worsened over the past year, but the hospital bills had swallowed everything Amara had left. She had nothing now, no savings, no job, not even a phone with a working screen. But Chuka was now living in Lekki Phase 1, working for a foreign company that paid in dollars. His Instagram showed him driving a Mercedes and posing in front of high-rise buildings. He wore suits that cost more than her yearly rent. He was finally the man she believed he would become. But she wasn't in his pictures. She wasn't anywhere. In his story. Still, with trembling hands, Amara borrowed her neighbor's phone and called him. When he picked up, she didn't even say hello. She just begged, "Please, Chuka, my mother is dying. I need money for surgery. Just help me this one time." There was a pause on the line. Then his voice, cold and calm. "Amara, things are tight right now. I'll send you something small." A few minutes later, N7,000 arrived in her bank account. 7,000 naira. Amara didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared at the screen like it had slapped her. This was the man she gave everything for. The man who once kissed her forehead and said she was his destiny. Her neighbor looked at her and asked softly, "What will you do now?" Amara didn't answer. 3 days later, she saw the news on her friend's WhatsApp status. Chuka was engaged to her best friend, Muna. The photo showed them smiling in front of a cake that said, "Forever begins here." She dropped the phone and walked outside barefoot, numb. The world tilted, and her breath came in shallow gasps. Betrayal didn't even begin to cover what she felt. It wasn't just love lost. It was her soul, stomped on and discarded like she was nothing. But what Chuka didn't know was that Amara had been keeping a secret. A truth that could ruin the life he'd carefully built. A truth wrapped in pain, loyalty, and silence. And now, the time was coming when she'd no longer keep it to herself. Amara didn't leave her room for 2 full days. Her mother's weak coughing filled the silence, but Amara barely moved. She lay beside her, curled up like a child, her mind racing but her body frozen. She had no strength left, not for tears, not for revenge, not even for hope. Then, on the 3rd morning, something in her changed. It wasn't anger. It was colder than that. It was silence that decided it had been kind for too long. She washed her face, tied her hair back, and wore the same faded dress she had worn the day she took Chuka to his admission interview. She carried her small handbag, the one that still held the last hospital bill she couldn't pay, and walked out. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. She didn't tell her mother goodbye. She just walked. From Yaba to Lekki, she rode in silence. The sun beat down, the bus was crowded, but she didn't feel anything. When she got to the estate gate, she gave the guard Chuka's name. "Tell him Amara is here," she said, firm and calm. The guard looked her up and down. "Madam, this is a private estate. Do you have an appointment?" "No," she replied. "But tell him, I'm the woman who gave him his life." The guard didn't move, so Amara did. She walked past him, straight into the estate, ignoring the shouting behind. People stared. Security followed. But she didn't care anymore. She reached Chuka's apartment just as he stepped out. His suit was perfect, his shoes were polished, and on his finger, an engagement ring meant for another. Their eyes met, and in that second, Chuka froze. It had been years since he saw her last, but nothing could erase the face of the woman who starved so he could eat. The woman who believed in him when nobody else did. What are you doing here?" he asked. Amara looked him in the eye and said only 3 words. "I know everything." Muna adjusted her curls in the salon mirror, smiling as the stylist tied the final ribbon in her hair. The engagement party was only 2 days away, and she had already posted 10 pictures of the ring. Every like was a silent confirmation. She had won. She had always wanted what Amara had. First, the brains. Then, the charm. And then, Chuka. She knew it was wrong, but love made things blurry. And now, standing here, hours away from the big party, Muna believed it was finally her time to shine, until she got the message. A single picture, no words. Just a photo of Amara standing outside Chuka's apartment gate. Muna's heart dropped. She knew that look on Amara's face. It was the same look Amara wore the day her father died. Stone cold, full of truth and pain. She rushed out of the salon, nearly forgetting her purse. Back at Chuka's apartment, Amara was sitting on the couch, calm, composed. Her fingers tapped slowly on the table as Chuka paced. "You shouldn't have come here," Chuka said, wiping sweat from his brow. "It's too late. You disappeared. I thought you moved on." Amara didn't blink. "You thought I disappeared because you wanted me gone, But I didn't disappear. I was surviving. I was carrying the pieces you left behind. Chuka turned away. Why now, Amara? Why show up now? She stood up, pulled out a small old photo, handed it to him. It was faded, wrinkled, but still clear enough to see. A newborn baby wrapped in a blue blanket. The baby had Chuka's nose. I didn't just give up medical school, she whispered. I gave you a son. Chuka's knees buckled, and he sat down hard. That's not possible. You said nothing. I wrote you a letter. You never replied. I came to your school. Your roommate said you had moved to Abuja for an internship. I searched for you for months. When I found you again, it was too late. You had blocked me everywhere. You were already calling me your past. Chuka held the photo like it would vanish if he let go. Just then, the door swung open. It was Muna. She took one look at Amara, one look at the photo, and froze. What is going on? Amara didn't move. Ask your fiancé. Muna's eyes darted between them. Amara. What is this? It's the truth, Amara said. The truth you both have been running from. Chuka stood up, pale. Muna, please, I didn't know, I swear. I never knew about the child. But Amara had one more card to play. She looked at Muna and said, Tell him, Muna. Tell him you've always known. Because you were the one who picked up that letter. You were the one who told me he left town. And you were the one who kept my secret so you could take my place. Muna's face cracked, like a mirror breaking. And just like that, the engagement ring on her finger suddenly felt very, very heavy. Muna stood like a statue. Her hands slowly dropped from her chest. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. For the first time since she met Chuka, she didn't feel like the prize. She felt like the thief. Chuka looked at her, confused. Tell me she's lying, Muna. Please, say something. Muna's mouth opened, then shut again. Her eyes darted to Amara, then back to Chuka. I didn't know the letter was about a child, she stammered. I thought it was just Amara, being dramatic. I didn't even read the whole thing. I just didn't want her to pull you back in. You were finally becoming something. Amara laughed, not with humor, with disbelief. So you destroyed my life for ambition? Muna's voice cracked. I loved you like a sister. I did what I thought was best. Chuka stepped back, his hands on his head. You lied to me. Both of you lied to me. Amara turned to him sharply. Don't you dare. I begged you for help just days ago. My mother is dying, and you sent me 7,000 naira. 7,000! That's less than what your cologne costs. I didn't know, Chuka whispered, but even he couldn't believe himself. Amara reached into her bag again and pulled out a tiny brown envelope. He's 7 years old. His name is Aboob. He likes to draw houses and wants to become an architect. He looks like you when he frowns. Chuka didn't take the envelope, so Amara dropped it on the floor and walked past both of them. Before she opened the door, she looked back one last time and said, I didn't come here to ruin your life. I came to remind you what your success is built on, and to give you a chance to be something more than what you've become. Then she left. Silence in the apartment was louder than any scream. Amara walked through the street like a ghost. The noise of the city faded behind her, replaced only by the memory of her son's small voice asking the same question every night. Mama, why doesn't Daddy live with us? She had told Aboob stories, that his father was a traveler, that he worked far away to help people build homes. But now, she didn't know what to say anymore. When she got home, her mother was worse, breathing hard, sweating even in the cold breeze. Amara placed a wet cloth on her head and sat beside her, holding her hand. Mama, I saw him today, she whispered. Her mother's eyes flickered. What did he say? Nothing important. But it's over now. I won't beg him again. The next day, Amara took Ebube to the park, a dusty open space where children kicked balls and sold sachet water. Ebube ran ahead, chasing a torn balloon. He was small for his age, but fast and smart. Another mother nearby whispered to her friend, "She's so young." "You think the father is around?" Amara heard it, but she didn't flinch. She was used to whispers. But what she wasn't used to was what happened next. A black car pulled up at the edge of the park, and Chuka stepped out. He didn't wear a suit this time. No perfume, no watch, just jeans and a plain t-shirt. His eyes scanned the park until they found her. Then they found the boy. Ebube froze when he saw the tall man approaching. "Hello," Chuka said softly. "You must be Ebube." Ebube looked up at his mother. Amara stood still, her heart slamming against her chest. Chuka bent down, lowering himself to the boy's height. "Can I sit here?" Ebube nodded slowly. "Are you the builder my mummy talked about?" Chuka smiled with sad eyes. "Yes, I guess I am." The three of them sat on a broken bench. For a moment, the world seemed still. Amara watched her son talk about crayons and his favorite cartoon. She watched Chuka laugh, really laugh, for the first time in years. But the peace didn't last long. Muna showed up. Her car door slammed. Her heels hit the ground hard. "So this is it?" she shouted. "You didn't come home last night. You didn't call. Now you're playing happy." Family in a park with her. Chuka stood up slowly. "Muna, not here. Please." "Why not?" she screamed. "She shows up with a random child and suddenly you want to be father of the year? Do you even know it's yours?" Amara pulled Ebube behind her. "Muna, Chuka," said calmly, "go home." She looked at him like she didn't recognize him. "You're throwing me away. For this?" "No," he said. "I'm choosing to make something right, for once in my life." Muna stared at Amara, then the child, then back at Chuka. "You'll regret this. Both of you will." Then she stormed off. Ebube tugged Amara's sleeve and whispered, "Is that another mummy?" And Amara didn't know whether to laugh or cry. 2 days passed. Amara sat quietly at the edge of her mother's bed, gently spoon-feeding her pap. Her mother's strength had faded to a whisper, and even sitting upright was now a struggle. The surgery still hadn't been scheduled. There was no money. A knock came at the door. Amara opened it and froze. It was Chuka, again. But this time, he wasn't alone. He carried 2 plastic bags filled with fruits, medicine, and 2 small toys for Ebube. "Can I come in?" he asked. Amara hesitated, then stepped aside. Chuka greeted her mother gently and helped Amara place the medicine near the small table by the wall. Then he turned to her. "I've been thinking," he said, "about the past, about what I became." Amara didn't say anything. She didn't trust him. Not yet. "I was selfish," Chuka continued. "When I started making money, I thought helping people meant throwing money at them when it was convenient. I forgot that I had debts that weren't financial." He turned to look at Ebube, who sat on the floor drawing a picture with crayons. Chuka had bought them yesterday at the park. "I want to do better," he said. Amara sat on the edge of the old couch. "Why now? Why not years ago when I was cleaning houses to feed our son? When I was begging you for help while my mother coughed?" "Blood at night?" Chuka lowered his eyes. "Because I didn't want to look back. I thought looking back would ruin me, but now I see. I was already ruined." Ebube walked over, holding his picture up proudly. "It's a house. For me and Mummy. Can we build it, mister?" Chuka smiled faintly, then looked at Amara. "If you'll let me, maybe we can build it together." She didn't answer. That night, She warmed a simple meal of rice and stew and invited him to join them at the table. It was awkward, silent, heavy, but it was something. Just as Chuka picked up a spoon, Amara's phone buzzed with a message. She opened it, and her hand froze. It was from an unknown number. "You think you've won? Watch your back. This isn't over." She didn't need to guess who sent it. Muna wasn't done. The next morning, Amara went straight to the local clinic with her mother. The doctor smiled at the medicine she brought and adjusted the treatment plan, saying it would buy her mother more time, maybe even a chance at surgery soon. Amara felt hope, for the first time in weeks. When she returned home, Chuka was still there, helping Ibube with basic math. The sight of her son giggling made her heart ache and swell at the same time. But the message from Muna still hung in her mind like a shadow. Later that evening, she stepped out to buy bread. As she returned, she noticed a woman sitting on the staircase across the compound. It was Muna. Her makeup was perfect, her face calm, her body still, but her eyes were fire. "I'm not here to fight," Muna said. "I'm here to ask one question." Amara folded her arms. "Do you really think he's changed?" Muna asked. Amara didn't answer. "Let me tell you something," Muna continued. "Chuka lies in circles. You think you're special because he's sitting on your couch now, but I've seen him lie to his boss, to his friends, even to himself. This act won't last." Amara's jaw clenched. "If he fails again, it will be on him, not me." Muna smirked. "And when he fails, don't come crying to me, because I'll be watching and waiting." She stood up, brushed imaginary dust off her clothes, and walked away with the confidence of someone who believed she still had a secret weapon. Inside, Chuka was wiping Ibub's nose. He looked up at Amara. "Everything okay?" Amara didn't reply right away. Then she sat beside him. "If you're going to be here, really be here, you need to know something," she said. Chuka nodded. "You have hurt me in ways I can't explain. You left me to drown while you drank champagne. I won't forget that. I don't forgive you. Yet. But if you truly want to rebuild, don't give speeches. Just show up. Every day. With truth." Chuka looked her in the eye. "I will." But behind, Amara's strength was a deep fear. She didn't know which would destroy her more, Chuka lying again, or Chuka telling the truth. The next few days moved quietly. Chuka began showing up every morning, walking Ibub to school and helping Amara care for her mother. He cooked once, even if the yam was slightly burnt. It was strange seeing him like this, trying. But Amara kept her walls up. Too many wounds, too many lies. One afternoon, Amara went to Ibub's school to drop off a missing assignment. The school secretary, a tired woman with kind eyes, handed her a folder. "Since you're here, you can update his file," she said. Amara nodded and sat down. As she scanned through the documents, birth certificate, immunization forms, drawings, something caught her attention. A yellow sticky note. It was attached to a copy of Ibub's file and read, "Father came by 2 months ago asking for records. Confirmed relationship. Told him child lived with mother in Yaba." Amara's heart stopped. She hadn't told the school anything about Chuka recently. In fact, until 2 weeks ago, they all thought Ibub's father was dead. She turned the note over. Signed, Muna Adebayo. Her hands trembled. Muna had known exactly where they lived long before Amara ever showed up at the estate. She had come to the school. She had seen the documents. But why? Why would she track down the boy if she hadn't told Chuka? Unless... Amara's stomach turned. She grabbed the folder, thanked the secretary, and left. Her mind swirled with questions. What did Muna want with her son? She reached home and sat quietly in the corner as Chuka helped Ibube arrange his toys. She watched them closely, studied. Chuka's eyes, his body language. Then she spoke. "Did you go to Ebub's school before you saw us in the park?" Chuka paused, looked up. "No. Why?" Amara pulled out the sticky note and placed it on the table. His eyes narrowed. "That's not my handwriting," he said. That's Muna's last name." They stared at each other in silence. Then, Amara whispered, "She was watching us long before we knew." Muna walked into the restaurant wearing a tight red dress and a sharper attitude. Sitting across the table was a man in a gray suit with a laptop open in front of him. His name was Ayo, and he was Chuka's former boss. "I didn't think you'd actually call," he said. Muna smiled. "I have something you might want to see." She pulled out a brown envelope and slid it across the table. He opened it. Inside were printed screenshots, emails, invoices, and hidden company records. "Where did you get this?" he asked. Muna stirred her drink slowly. "Let's just say, Chuka's not as smart as he thinks. When he was busy climbing the ladder, I made copies of everything. All his offshore payments, all the dates he forged on those housing reports." Ayo leaned back. "You're blackmailing him?" "No," Muna replied. "I'm handing him over. You said you wanted to fire him quietly. I say, make it loud. Ruin his reputation. Let the world know he's a fraud." Ayo hesitated. "Why?" "Because he thinks he's better than me. Because he thinks he can throw me away like trash and walk into a perfect family with a woman who scrubbed toilets to feed his child." Muna's eyes burned with rage. "I made him. I polished him. He used me to become the man he is today. And now he wants to build a new life with her?" Ayo tapped the table. "You know this could ruin his entire career?" Muna smiled. "Exactly." Back in Yaba, Chuka's phone buzzed as he prepared dinner for Amara and Ebube. He glanced at it and frowned. From Ayodele Oke. Subject: urgent meeting required. He opened the message. Inside was a single sentence. "Come clean or be buried." The air inside Chuka's flat felt heavier than usual. Amara sat with her arms folded while Ebube drew quietly in the corner. Chuka stood at the window, staring at the message on his phone over and over. His heart thumped like a drum in his ears. Come clean or be buried. He didn't tell Amara. Not yet. Instead, he walked into the kitchen and splashed water on his face. He had built his entire career on connections, quick talk, and smart shortcuts. But Muna, he never expected her to turn the knife this deep. The next morning, he showed up at work dressed in plain gray slacks and a shirt that hadn't seen an iron in 2 weeks. His boss, Ayo, sat behind a glass table tapping a pen against his teeth. "You've been with us for 5 years, Ayo said without looking up. "You've signed 36 contracts, made 12 site visits, and submitted 23 final reports. At least 7 of those were falsified." Chuka's mouth went dry. I didn't think it would. That's the problem." Ayo cut him off. "You didn't think. You believed no one was watching, but someone always is." Chuka stood quietly. He didn't beg. He didn't argue. Somewhere deep inside, he knew he deserved this. Ayo closed the file. "I'm giving you 48 hours to resign, clean, silent, or I'll forward this to the licensing board and let them deal with you. You'll never work in construction again." Chuka nodded. "Thank you." On the ride home, he stared out the Danfo window, watching the city he used to own. Now it looked different, sharper, crueler. Every building reminded him of a deal he made, a lie he told, a corner he cut. When he got home, Amara knew something was wrong. "You're home early," she said, eyes narrowing. He didn't answer. Instead, he picked up Ebube, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "Daddy made mistakes, but I promise I'll fix them." Amara watched him closely. She didn't say a word. But she knew something was falling apart. Later that night, Amara stepped out to buy bottled water. When she returned, she found her mother gasping on the bed, hands shaking, lips pale. "Mummy!" she screamed, rushing to her side. Chuka appeared instantly. "What happened?" I don't know." "She was fine just now," Amara cried. They rushed her to the nearest clinic. The doctor, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, shook his head after checking her vitals. "She needs to be transferred. Fast. The infection has spread." Amara's hands trembled. "How much?" 250,000 naira, at least." Chuka didn't hesitate. He pulled out his phone, but his banking app said, "Insufficient funds." He had been suspended from work. His accounts were under review. The company had frozen his salary until he signed his resignation. Amara grabbed her head and slid to the ground. "This can't be happening. Not now." The doctor sighed. "She may not make it through the night if she stays here." In desperation, Chuka called Muna. She picked on the third ring, laughing in the background like she was at a party. "I need help," he said, voice low. "It's Amara's mother. She's dying. I need to transfer her immediately." Muna paused. Then she chuckled. "Oh, now you need me? You must be desperate." "I'm begging," Chuka whispered. "Please, I'll send the money," Muna said. "But only if Amara begs me too. On her knees, in person, and she has to say I won." Chuka's eyes shut tight. "You're sick," he said. "No," Muna replied coldly. "I'm just doing what women like Amara never learned to do. Take power." He hung up. Back in the clinic hallway, Amara was crying quietly beside her mother's bed. She looked up at Chuka, her voice breaking. "Did she help?" He didn't answer. That silence said everything. Amara stood up, walked over to her mother, and kissed her forehead. "You told me not to beg anyone but God," she whispered. "But tonight, I might break that promise." She turned to Chuka. "Take me to her." Chuka's eyes widened. "Amara, no." But she had already picked up her bag. She was done waiting for life to show her mercy. If this was what it took to save her mother, she would walk straight into the lion's den. It was almost midnight when Chuka's car pulled up to Muna's house. The compound lights were still on. A soft Afro beat played from the balcony. Laughter floated through the air, careless and cruel. Amara stepped out of the car slowly. Her legs were weak, but her face was strong. Chuka reached for her hand. "Don't go in there," he whispered. "We'll find another way." Amara shook her head. "My mother doesn't have time, and Muna wants power." "I'll give her just enough, then take it back." They walked through the open gate. Muna was lounging on her patio chair with a glass of red wine in hand. She wore a satin robe and the smirk of a queen watching her enemy crawl. Well, she said, lifting her glass. "The girl who sacrificed everything. Now look at you, begging for crumbs." Amara didn't reply. She knelt quietly, her knees touching the cold tiles. Muna sat up straighter. "Say it." Amara stared at her. Her voice came out low but clear. "You win, Muna. I'm here because you have what we need. Not because I believe you're better. But tonight, you hold the money." Muna's smile faded just a little. "Not quite what I asked," Amara continued. "You win, I lose. My pride is on this floor. Now please, help me save my mother." There was a silence. Chuka stood behind Amara, fists clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. Then Muna stood. She walked toward Amara, heels clicking like a countdown to humiliation. She stood over her, staring into her eyes. "You know," I thought, "this would feel better, watching you kneel." Amara's jaw tightened. "But all I see now," Muna continued, "is a woman who still has something I'll never have. You lost everything, and you still look like you have more dignity than me." She turned away suddenly, reached for her phone, and made the transfer. "And 300,000. It's done," she said. "Now get out." Amara stood slowly, knees bruised but spirit unbroken. "Thank you," she said. Muna didn't reply. She was already sipping her wine, eyes turned to the stars, hiding the storm inside her. They reached the hospital in under 30 minutes. The staff rushed Amara's mother into the ambulance and moved her to the specialist clinic immediately. That night, Amara didn't sleep. She sat in the hospital corridor with her head resting on Chuka's shoulder. Neither of them spoke. There were no words left. By morning, the doctor came out. "She made it through the night," he said. "The surgery will happen tomorrow morning. You came just in time." Amara burst into tears. Chuka held her tightly. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for everything." But deep inside, Chuka knew he wasn't just apologizing for the past. He was scared of what was coming next. Later that day, Chuka returned to his apartment to pick a few things. As he unlocked the door, he noticed the envelope Muna had once left on his kitchen counter, one he never bothered to open. This time, he did. Inside were photos, dozens of them: Amara, Eboob, the school, their home, and then something else, a signed contract with his name, and Muna's signature right next to it. A secret business agreement from 3 years ago, one he never approved. His heart dropped. This wasn't just personal. Muna had set him up long ago, but why? Just then, his phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a threat. It was from his company's lawyer. "Your account shows unusual activity connected to an unauthorized housing scheme under your name. We will need to open an internal investigation. Please prepare your files and respond within 24 hours. Chuka stared at the wall, his entire life unraveling at the seams. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, Amara stood by her mother's bedside. The woman stirred, eyes slowly opening. "My daughter," she whispered. "Come closer." Amara leaned down. Her mother's weak hand gripped hers. "There's something you need to know about Eboob, about your father." Amara's blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" But her mother only coughed, closed her eyes, and drifted back into sleep. And Amara was left standing in that cold hospital room with a brand new fear. What else had been hidden from her? Amara barely slept. Her mother's strange words haunted her. "There's something you need to know about Eboob, about your father." What did that mean? What did her father, who died when she was just 10, have to do with her son? The next morning, the nurses prepped her mother for surgery. Amara stood by her bedside, holding her hand, whispering silent prayers, and watching every breath as if it might be the last. The operation would take 3 hours, the longest 3 hours of her life. While she waited, her thoughts kept circling around that final sentence. She pulled out her old photo album from her bag, a worn brown leather book her mother had kept all these years. She flipped through pictures of her childhood in Enugu, of her father, tall, dark-skinned, always smiling, then paused at a photo of him standing beside an old man in a police uniform. She remembered him now. Uncle Ikenna. He had visited once, years ago, and brought her sweets. He wasn't a blood relative, just her father's best friend. Her mother had cut him off after the funeral. Amara never asked why, but something inside told her, Uncle Ikenna knows the truth. She took a deep breath, called Chuka, and explained everything. Chuka didn't speak for a moment. Then he said, "I'll find him." "But how?" Amara asked. "Leave that to me." For the first time, she didn't argue. She let someone else carry the weight, just for a moment. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the doctor returned after the surgery. "It went well," he said. "She'll sleep for a few more hours, but she's stable." Amara let out the breath she'd been holding since dawn. Relief washed over her, followed quickly by a new kind of fear. What if the truth her mother held wasn't just painful, but dangerous? Back in Lagos, Chuka was on a mission. He called in a favor from an old friend at the local council who worked in public archives. After digging through some files and school records, they finally found a lead. Ikenna Eze, retired police superintendent, now living in an estate on the outskirts of Ibadan. Chuka didn't hesitate. He drove 6 hours without stopping, fueled by guilt, fear, and a growing need to make things right. He found Ikenna's house, small, quiet, painted yellow, and knocked. An older man with graying eyebrows and sharp eyes answered. "Yes?" "My name is Chuka Ume. I'm here on behalf of Amara Naji and her son." Ikenna's face changed immediately. His eyes darkened. He stepped outside, closed the door behind him, and said, "Follow me." They walked to a bench under a mango tree in the backyard. "I always wondered when this day would come," Ikenna said. "Sit down." Chuka obeyed. "What do you know?" Ikenna asked. Only that her mother said something about a boob and Amara's father. But she didn't explain. Ikenna was quiet for a long time. Then he pulled out an envelope from his pocket, already aged and brittle. "Before Amara's father died," he said, "he found something out, something that shook him." He opened the envelope. Inside was a DNA report, years old, dated just 3 days before his death. Ikenna looked up. It said Amara wasn't his biological daughter. Chuka's throat closed. "But he loved her," Ikenna said firmly. "Never treated her differently. He only asked me to protect her if anything ever happened to him." "So, who is her real father?" Chuka asked. Ikenna didn't answer immediately. Instead, he said, "There's more. Amara's mother. She had a relationship before she met her husband. A brief one. It ended badly. He was married. Powerful. When she got pregnant, he offered her money to disappear." Chuka leaned forward, heart racing. "Do you know who he was?" Ikenna looked straight at him. "His name was Chief Anayo Okorie." Chuka froze. "I know that name. Everyone in Lagos does," Ikenna replied. "He owns 3 construction firms, half of Lekki's real estate, and, if I'm not mistaken, he's also your former boss's biggest client." Chuka staggered to his feet. "Iboob, Amara, this truth was bigger than just betrayal. It was political, powerful, dangerous. What do I do?" he asked, voice shaking. Ikenna stood too. "You protect them, especially now, because if Anayo ever finds out the child exists, he might want to claim him, or silence the truth entirely." Chuka gritted his teeth. "I won't let that happen." He raced back to Lagos with the envelope clutched tight. But when he reached the hospital, Amara was gone. Her mother's bed was empty. The nurses only said they left with a man, said he was family. But Amara didn't have any family. Chuka's blood ran cold. Someone else had come for them. The hospital room was empty. No sign of Amara, no trace of her mother. No clue where they went. Chuka rushed to the reception desk. "You said they left with a man. What did he look like?" The nurse flipped through the logbook. "Tall, gray beard, expensive agbada. Drove a black jeep. Said he was Uncle Anayo." Chuka's hands gripped the counter until his knuckles cracked. Chief Anayo Okorie had found them. "How long ago?" he asked. "About 30 minutes. Chuka didn't wait. He ran to his car and hit the road like a man possessed. His mind ran faster than his engine. How did Anayo find them? Who told him? The only person who had access to that kind of information was Muna. He dialed her number. She answered on the second ring, already sounding smug. "Looking for your little family?" "Muna," Chuka growled. "What did you do?" "I did what needed to be done," she replied calmly. "You're not the only one who knows how to play the game. You should thank me. At least now the real father can decide what happens to his grandchild. You have no idea what you've done. I know exactly what I've done. You wanted to be a hero, now go fight a war." She hung up. Chuka slammed the steering wheel and veered off the road toward Anayo's mansion in Banana Island. Chief Anayo's mansion was guarded like a fortress. Long metal gates, 2 armed men outside, high walls, and behind all of it, the man whose empire was built on silence, bribes, and buried truths. Inside, Amara sat in a cold, air-conditioned room, her arms tightly wrapped around her mother's shoulders. Her mother had woken up just minutes ago, weak but alive. But the look on her face when she saw Anayo told Amara everything. He was the man. The first man. "Why now?" Amara asked him, standing between him and the bed. "Why come for us after all these years?" Anayo didn't raise his voice. "Because I don't ignore blood. I paid your mother to disappear, not to create an entire life in my shadow. If the child is mine, I have a right to him." "He's not yours," Amara spat. Anayo raised a brow. "No? Then let's get a test and find out. He's not yours," she repeated, "because you're nothing to us." Anayo stepped closer, his voice dropping. "You don't know how Lagos works. You think you've struggled? You haven't even tasted real loss. Keep pushing me and I'll show you what it means to be erased." The door burst open. Chuka stormed in, fists clenched, breathing heavy. The guards rushed forward, but Anayo raised a hand to stop them. Chuka walked straight to Amara, standing beside her. "You're not taking her, or the child." Anayo's eyes narrowed. "Ah, the houseboy arrives." Chuka ignored the insult. "You abandoned them. You paid her mother to vanish. You don't get to play savior now." Anayo walked to his table, picked up a whiskey glass, and took a sip. "You think this is a love story? Boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy redeems himself? This isn't Nollywood, my son. This is Lagos. I can erase all of you with a phone call." Chuka pulled out the DNA results from McKenna and slammed it on the table. "Already done," he said. "If you touch Amara or her family again, this goes public. Every journalist, every activist, every enemy you've ever made will get a copy." Anayo stared at the envelope for a long, tense moment. Then he smiled, slowly. "Well played." He sat down calmly, crossed his legs, and said, "You have your little family. For now. But know this, everything comes with a price in this city. Sooner or later, I always collect." He waved his hand. The guards stepped aside. Amara helped her mother up, and Chuka guided them out. But as they reached the gate, Anayo called, after them, "Raise the boy well, because one day I might come back for his loyalty." They didn't look back. Back in their small flat in Yaba, Amara sat on the edge of the mattress, watching Aboob sleep. His chest rose and fell gently, his little arms wrapped tightly around his pillow. He didn't know how close he came to being dragged into a world of politics, greed, and legacy. She bent down, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "You're mine, not his, never his." Chuka stood by the doorway, arms crossed, a haunted look in his eyes. "You didn't have to follow me into that house," Amara said, voice low. "I did," he replied, "because you went into that fight alone too many times. I couldn't let you do it again." She looked up at him. "What happens now?" He sighed. "Now. I go back to work tomorrow and sign the papers. Step down, quietly before they ruin me completely." "But that's your career," she said. Chuka laughed bitterly. "I lost the right to call it a career the moment I started forging reports and lying to get ahead. I built my name on shortcuts. It's time to pay." The next morning, Chuka wore his only clean shirt, grabbed the resignation letter, and headed to the office. When he arrived, he was stopped at the entrance. "Mr. Ume?" a receptionist said nervously. "There's been a development. Please wait here." 10 minutes later, the head of HR came down with security officers. "You're not just resigning anymore," she said coldly. "You're under internal investigation. Hand over your ID, now." Chuka froze. "What?" I thought I had 48 hours. Not anymore, she snapped. New evidence surfaced. Someone submitted your offshore banking logs to the board anonymously this morning. His heart sank. Muna. She was still coming for him, even now. As security escorted him out of the building, like a criminal, Chuka looked up at the glass windows where he once stood tall, respected, powerful. It was all gone. Amara knew something was wrong the moment she saw Chuka walk into the house. His shoulders were slumped, his jaw tight. He placed his ID badge on the table and sat down heavily. They fired me, he said simply. Amara sat beside him. I'm sorry. I deserved it, he muttered. But it still hurts. He pulled out his phone and showed her an email from the company. Your severance is frozen pending the investigation outcome. All assets associated with your former department are under audit. They were not just firing him, they were burying him. I know it was Muna, Chuka said. She's feeding them everything. Screenshots, bank logs, even recordings. Amara's hands curled into fists. She wants to destroy you. No, he said softly. She wants to destroy us. That night, Amara sat alone after Eboob fell. Asleep. She opened her phone, scrolled through old messages and found one from Muna dated over a year ago, before the betrayal. You're too soft, Amara. Love is not enough. Power is the only safety in this world. Now she understood what Muna meant, and now she needed a plan. The next day, Amara paid a visit to Ikenna, the retired officer who had helped Chuka. She told him everything. Anayo's threat, Chuka's job, Muna's vendetta. I need protection, she said. Not just for me, for Eboobi. Ikenna nodded slowly. There's one way, but it will get messy. I don't care. He reached for a dusty brown folder from his drawer. If you're serious, then it's time to expose both of them. Publicly. Amara hesitated. What do you mean? Anayo bribed your mother to hide you. That's a crime. Muna falsified employment records to blackmail a corporation. That's another crime. I can help you report it, anonymously. But once the wheels start turning, it won't stop. Amara looked down at her hands, thinking of all the years she swallowed pain in silence. Then she said the words that changed everything. Start the process. Amara stared at the brown folder on Ikenna's desk. Inside were documents, receipts, dated letters and printed screenshots. Evidence gathered over years, now ready to breathe. You know what happens once this goes public? Ikenna asked. I lose my peace, Amara whispered. But maybe I gain my freedom. He nodded. I'll file the report anonymously, but the moment the investigation starts, it won't be quiet. Anayo will try to control the media. Muna will twist her story. You'll be painted as a bitter ex, a woman scorned, a mother desperate for attention. Amara looked him in the eye. Let them talk. I've stayed quiet for too long. Ikenna made the first call, then the second. Then he sent the folder through an encrypted drop to a former journalist who still owed him a favor. Within 2 hours, the story was in motion. By nightfall, Anayo Exposed began trending on Twitter, Nigeria. Breaking. Real estate tycoon. Chief Anayo Okori, accused of paying woman to hide love child. Anonymous sources reveal decades of business. Bribery, document forgery. CEO faces accusations tied to disappearance of employee's family and school record tampering. Screenshots, names, dates. The story went viral. And then, Muna's name surfaced. Ex-executive assistant linked to corporate leak and retaliation scheme. Her photo, polished, proud, perfect, circulated like wildfire. Amara watched the chaos unfold from her couch, her phone vibrating every 5 seconds. Her inbox filled with messages, some supportive, others venomous. She didn't reply to any of them. But when she saw Muna's call come in, she answered. I told you. Muna's voice was shaking with rage. "You don't know how to play this game." Amara replied quietly. "No, Muna. I just stopped playing your game." Then she hung up. The fallout was instant. The next morning, Chuka's name appeared in the story too. But this time it was different. The headline read, "Engineer turned whistleblower linked to leaked Anayo documents. Claims of redemption or collateral damage." Chuka stood in the middle of the market, phone in hand, staring at the article. Strangers passed by, whispering and pointing. A boy selling boiled corn muttered, "Now that man way leaked the big man gist." He walked home slowly, every step heavier than the last. When he entered the house, Amara was waiting at the table, arms folded. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "That they mentioned you." "I didn't want to scare you," he said. "Too late." She slid her phone across the table. On it was a message from a blocked number. "You think you've won? You just opened a war?" Chuka gritted his teeth. "Anayo." "They won't stop now," Amara said. "But neither will I." Later that evening, they sat together on the floor of the living room while a boob played in the corner. The TV was off. The lights were dim. Outside, Lagos was buzzing with gossip, but inside their small home, it was quiet. Chuka leaned back against the wall. "I'm sorry I ever put you in a position where you had to be strong alone." Amara didn't respond right away. Then she said, "The worst part wasn't doing it alone. It was knowing you were out there pretending I never existed." "I know," he said. "I will never do that again." They sat in silence. Then Chuka asked, "What now?" Amara stared at the ceiling. "Now we wait for the fire to finish burning. And when the smoke clears, we see what's still standing." 3 days after the story broke, Chief Anayo held a private meeting at one of his unfinished luxury estates in Lekki. No cameras, no reporters, just him and his legal team. "Find the source," he barked. "Silence it. I don't care what it takes." His lawyer, a balding man with trembling hands, cleared his throat. "Sir, the source appears to be someone close to your past. The files match a folder we know was in the hands of Ikenna Easy." Anayo's fist slammed the table. He was warned. The room went quiet. Anayo looked up slowly. "Then make sure his warning is permanent this time." That same night, Ikenna's gate was broken. His power was cut. Men dressed in black stormed his compound, but Ikenna was ready. By the time they got to his bedroom, he was gone, along with his backup files, flash drives, and print copies. A decoy folder had been left behind with fake names and blank documents. Anayo got nothing. Enraged, he made a call to someone else, someone who still had one card left to play. Muna. In a dark restaurant in Victoria Island, Muna sipped her wine slowly. Her reputation was in shambles, her job gone, her name dragged online, but her rage, alive, sharp. She answered Anayo's call with a soft, "Yes, she's still walking free," he hissed. "And the child, he's still out there. I can handle it," Muna said, her voice like ice. "But I'll need access to one of your legal aides. I want to file for shared custody." Anayo went quiet. "You're not blood." "Doesn't matter. She listed me as an emergency contact at the boys' school last year when she thought I was her friend. That's enough to start a legal mess." Anayo chuckled. "Clever girl." Muna smiled to herself. "I'm not done yet." Amara stood at the front of a small community center packed with women, single mothers, students, struggling workers. The building wasn't fancy, but it was alive with energy. She wasn't supposed to speak. She had come only to listen. But the organizer, a midwife who had read Amara's story online, pulled her to the front and whispered, "Your voice can help more people than you know." Amara took a deep breath and stepped forward. "My name is Amara Naji," she said, softly. "And for years I stayed silent. I thought sacrifice meant love, that losing myself for someone else was strength. But silence isn't always noble. Sometimes silence is fear. The room was still. I loved a man who forgot me. I trusted a friend who betrayed me. I raised a child alone in a world that wanted to pretend we didn't exist. But today, I'm not ashamed anymore. Applause. Tears. A woman at the back cried out, "We're with you, sister." Amara smiled. They tried to erase me, but I held on. For my son, for my truth, for every woman who gave too much and got nothing back. That night, her speech went viral on WhatsApp and Instagram. The very people who once doubted her now stood behind her. Her name, once a whisper, became a chant. I am Amara, protect Iboob, justice for mothers. And just when it seemed things were turning, a lawyer showed up at her door. He handed her a legal document. Muna Adebayo had filed for emergency partial custody of Iboob. On what grounds? Prior caregiving relationship. Amara's hands shook as she read the bold line at the top. Petition for immediate joint custody of minor child, Iboob Naji. Chuka stood beside her, speechless. Amara looked up slowly, eyes burning. She wants a war, she whispered. Then let's give her one. The courtroom was colder than Amara expected. White walls, black robes. Eyes everywhere. Journalists lined the back rows, scribbling notes as if this was just another headline. But for Amara, this wasn't about trending hashtags. It was about her son. Iboob sat outside the courtroom with Chuka, drawing on the back of a flyer with his tiny pencil. He had no idea his future was on trial. Muna entered, dressed in a soft blue blouse and pearls, her hair tied in a neat bun. She looked like peace, but her eyes were knives. Amara sat upright, her lawyer flipping through files. With speed, beside her, Chuka sat in a wrinkled suit, the only one he had left after his job fallout. He refused to speak unless asked. This was Amara's fight, and he knew it. The judge walked in. Everyone rose. The case was called Adebayo vs. Naji, Emergency Custody Hearing. Muna's lawyer stood first. Your Honor, we seek immediate partial custody based on the petitioner's prior involvement in the child's welfare. Ms. Adebayo has previously provided care, financial assistance, and emotional support during the absence of the father. Amara's lawyer stood next. Your Honor, this case is based on manipulation. Ms. Adebayo's support was a calculated betrayal. We have evidence she deceived the child's mother, intercepted communication between both parents, and has no biological or legal claim to the child. Muna rose from her seat. I never wanted to take him. I just wanted to protect him. Amara was struggling. Struggling because you helped destroy her support system, her lawyer snapped. The judge raised a hand. Enough. Let's proceed with evidence. Amara took the stand. She told her story. Simple, clear, no embellishment. Just the truth. I gave up everything for the man I loved, she said. And when he left me, she stood beside me, pretending to care, while secretly helping him forget me. She lied to me. She even kept a letter about my child hidden for years. Muna stared straight ahead. And now, when I have started to rebuild, she comes for the one thing I have left? My child. The courtroom was silent. Then Muna took the stand. She played her part well. Tears in her voice, sincerity in every word. I never wanted to hurt Amara. But someone had to be stable. She was drowning. I did what I thought was right. Her lawyer submitted screenshots of past conversations between her and Amara during Iboob's early years, messages where Amara complained about poverty, food, depression. Muna used them all as weapons. The judge did not make a ruling that day. Instead, she said, both parties must return in 72 hours with further character references and evidence. In the meantime, the child will remain with his mother. Amara walked out, holding back tears. But when she saw Muna smile to herself in the hallway, she knew Muna wasn't finished. The next day, Amara sat on the edge of her bed staring at her phone. Her lawyer said she needed someone powerful, credible, a witness that could speak not just to Muna's betrayal, but to Amara's strength as a mother. Chuka had already testified once. He couldn't do more. Then she remembered someone. Ikenna. She called him. "I'll come," he said, "but not as a former officer. I'll come as a man who saw her carry a dying mother, raise a child in a room with no windows, and still have enough left to give." She exhaled deeply. 3 hours later, Ikenna arrived in Yaba with a flash drive and a brown folder. "This," he said, holding it up, "contains security footage from the hospital on the day Muna pretended to visit out of concern, but actually tried to bribe a nurse to list her as a guardian." Amara blinked. "What?" "She didn't know I traced the footage. I always back up my backups." The next day in court, the judge reviewed the footage in silence. It showed Muna handing an envelope to a nurse and whispering instructions. Also showed her trying to convince the school administrator that she should be added to Abub's school file as a relative for safety reasons. The judge looked up slowly. "Ms. Adebayo, do you wish to explain this?" Muna's face twisted. I was just trying to help." "By bribing staff?" the judge said, her tone cold. "Your petition is hereby denied, effective immediately." Muna stood, stunned. Amara didn't smile. She simply looked at Muna and said, "Now you know what it feels like to lose control." Outside the courtroom, reporters rushed them. Amara turned to Chuka. "We protect Ebube from here on, no matter what." Chuka nodded. "Even if the world comes for us again." Amara lifted Abub into her arms. The war wasn't over, but the biggest battle had been won. The courtroom victory made headlines. Judge rules in favor of mother in viral custody battle. Muna Adebayo accused of bribery and manipulation in shocking court video. Across social media, Amara was being hailed as a symbol of resilience. Support poured in from women's groups, child advocates, and even local politicians. But Amara didn't celebrate. She didn't attend interviews or share posts. Instead, she stayed home with Abub, baking plantain chips and brushing her mother's hair, because peace was never permanent. 3 days later, Chuka arrived home with news. "Muna's missing," he said, dropping a newspaper on the table. Amara raised her eyes slowly. "What do you mean?" "She's gone. Vanished. Her landlord said she packed out in the middle of the night. Her phone is switched off, and she's withdrawn all the money in her accounts." Amara felt a chill crawl up her back. "She's planning something," she whispered. Chuka nodded. "She's hurt, humiliated, and cornered. That's the most dangerous kind of person." Amara held her son close that night, locking all doors and windows before sleeping. She placed his favorite blanket on his chest and whispered, "No one will ever take you away from me." But at 2:37 a.m., a soft knock echoed at the front door. She froze. Another knock. Louder. Then silence. Chuka grabbed a kitchen knife. Amara crept to the window and peered out. No one was there. But on the doorstep was a brown envelope. She picked it up with trembling hands. There was no name, no return address, just one line written in red marker. "She's not the only one keeping secrets." Amara placed the envelope on the table and stared at it for almost an hour. Chuka sat beside her, refusing to touch it. "What if it's a trap?" he asked. "It already worked," she said. "Look at us. We can't breathe." Finally, she opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter on old, yellowing paper. She recognized the handwriting instantly. Her mother's. "If you're reading this, it means I didn't tell you the truth in time. I kept this secret because I thought it would protect you. I thought hiding the past would give you a clean future. But lies always return, sometimes with sharper teeth. A boob is yours, completely. But there's something I need you to know. Your real father didn't just abandon me. He tried to pay for your silence years ago, again, when you were 12. He sent someone to deliver money to Ikenna. Ikenna refused it, but the man threatened him. That's why Ikenna disappeared from our lives. What I never told you is that the man who delivered the threat was Chief Anayo's own brother. Amara's hands began to shake. The letter continued. I suspect they've always known you were his daughter. I think they've just been waiting for the right moment. Maybe to use you, maybe to erase you. If I don't wake from this illness, forgive me for the silence, for the fear. And remember, your power is not in how quiet you are, but how loud you love, how hard you fight. Tears spilled down Amara's cheeks. Chuka gently took the letter from her. They sat in silence. Then Amara whispered, That envelope wasn't from Muna. No, Chuka said. It was from someone who wants us scared, but also wants us warned. Amara stood. I'm done being scared, she said. It's time to tell the world. Everything, including who my real father is. Chuka looked up at her. Are you sure? She nodded. I'm done hiding. Amara didn't sleep that night. She read the letter over and over until she could feel her mother's voice in every line. Her entire life, she believed silence would keep her safe. But it didn't. It only delayed the pain. The next morning, she made her decision. I'm going public, she told Chuka, with everything. He stared at her, unsure. That's dangerous. So is pretending Anayo can't still hurt us, she replied. He's not just some man. He's a machine. And you don't beat a machine by hiding. You beat it by making sure everyone sees what it really is. She reached out to one of the reporters who had covered her custody case, Ngozi, a woman with a fearless voice and a deep sense of justice. Within hours, Amara sat down in a small studio with one camera, one microphone, and one mission. I'm not here to fight for sympathy, she began, calm but firm. I'm here to tell the truth that should have been told years ago. She revealed everything, her father's identity, the money her mother rejected, the threats Ikenna received, the bribes Muna attempted, and the brown envelope delivered by Anayo's brother. Ngozi asked the final question. What do you want? Amara's answer was clear. Protection for my son. A public investigation into Chief Anayo Okorie's intimidation practices. And above all, acknowledgement. Because we exist. And we're not going anywhere. The interview aired within 24 hours. It exploded across Nigeria and beyond. TV stations replayed her voice. Online forums shared her words. Activists began demanding a full investigation. And within 72 hours, Chief Anayo was summoned by the Anti-Corruption Commission. Anayo didn't speak to the press. He released one statement through his lawyer. The accusations are emotional, unfounded, manipulated. But no one was listening anymore. Too many voices had risen in Amara's support. Muna, meanwhile, tried to fly out of the country, but immigration flagged her. She was placed on a temporary no-fly list pending investigation into custodial interference and attempted bribery of public workers. Her last message to Amara came through a burner email. You win, but you'll always be the girl who had to burn. Everything down to feel important. Amara didn't reply. Instead, she wrote her own final message, a handwritten letter she placed in her son's scrapbook. Ibub, the world may forget our story one day, but you'll never forget how hard I fought to keep you free. I loved a man, and it broke me. I lost my dreams to build someone else's. But in the end, I found something stronger than revenge. I found my voice. 6 months later, Amara now works at a local women's legal aid center, helping other mothers file for child custody, child support, and protection. Chuka, rebuilding from scratch, teaches construction safety workshops to ex-convicts and underprivileged youth. He no longer wears suits, but he smiles more. Amara's mother recovered fully. She tends a small garden outside their home. Aboob? He won a local art contest for a drawing titled, "My House Has Love in It." One Sunday evening, the three of them sit outside under the sunset, Amara, Chuka, and Aboob, eating roasted corn and laughing like nothing was ever broken. Because sometimes the best revenge is survival with joy.